Scripture tells us that Joseph was well-built and handsome. He had it all. Why do they tell us this? Well, unfortunately, Potiphar's wife wanted it all. She tries repeatedly to seduce Joseph. He has to tell her over and over again, daily in fact, no. He says, I can't do this to my master who owns the house. I could not do this terrible thing and sin against God. One day Joseph walks into the house and she corners him with no one around. She grabs his clothes and she says, lie with me. Joseph turns and runs, leaving his garment behind. Rejected and seeing that she is not going to get her way with Joseph, she makes up a story and tells everyone that he tried to sleep with her, that she screamed and he ran. Potiphar hears this and he throws Joseph in prison. The prison where political prisoners were kept, a dungeon in the basement. Now we all look at this and we say, this is not fair. How could God let this happen to Joseph? Joseph has done no wrong. How can God let something bad happen in your life when you're trying so hard to follow him and obey his commands? Joseph should be blessed for obeying God, not punished. What's the deal, God? I would imagine that we have all found ourselves at one time or another in a pit with a hard setback. Our setbacks come in all different shapes and sizes. Maybe yours came with a diagnosis from a doctor or a traumatic injury or accident. Maybe you were sold out at work and forgotten. Maybe you were thrown into a divorce, abandoned or abused, rejected by your family. What's amazing about Joseph is that he does not allow the setbacks to define him. So many of us do. Even though all this evil is done against him, he never gives up on God. He never hardens his heart. He never becomes bitter toward God. He never becomes angry. What another has done against us, even if it's sinful, is never an excuse for our sin. Sometimes God delivers us out of hard situations, and sometimes he delivers us through them. As believers, we must be willing to suffer wrong, following Christ's example. When he was despised and abused, he offered grace in return. It's so easy to have your faith rocked when you don't get the answers you think God should give you. In this life, suffering is inevitable, but misery is optional. I think it's important to note too, when we look at the life of Joseph, we see nothing miraculous unless you include his dreams. But dreams and their God-given interpretation don't necessarily shape the future. Joseph doesn't receive bread from heaven to keep him going. He's not led by a cloud. He doesn't hear the voice of God. In many ways, he leads a very ordinary relationship with God. Joseph, just like us, must persevere through the unknown. But Joseph kept perspective. He knew God had delivered him once. He trusted that God would do it again. And even if God didn't, Joseph was going to make the best of the situation. When we are just desperate for God to change things in our lives to make them better, and he seems like he isn't doing it, do you just give up on God? Do you try to take matters into your own hands? Or do you trust that if you continue to obey him and stay faithful, he will be with you? Because he will.